Dr. Amara Johnson stepped out of the black luxury car and looked up at the gleaming glass and marble facade of the Grand Royal Hotel. The building stood 40 stories tall, its golden letters spelling out the hotel's name in bold elegance. She had stayed at many hotels across the country for her business meetings. But this one was different. This one was known as the finest 5-star hotel in the entire city. Amara adjusted her navy blue blazer and smoothed down her gray pencil skirt. Her brown leather briefcase felt heavy in her right hand, but she carried it with purpose. She was a successful businesswoman, an investor and entrepreneur who had built her wealth through smart decisions and hard work over the past 15 years. At 42 years old, she had the confidence that comes from years of achievement. Her hair was styled neatly in braids pulled back from her face, and she wore minimal jewelry, just a gold watch and small diamond earrings. She had arrived in the city that morning for an important business conference. The meetings had gone well, and she had secured a major investment deal that would add millions to her portfolio. Now, after a long day of talking and listening to presentations, all she wanted was to relax in a comfortable room, order room service, and review the documents she needed to sign the next morning. The automatic glass doors of the hotel slid open silently as she approached. Cool air-conditioned air rushed out to meet the warm evening breeze. The lobby was breathtaking, with high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and expensive-looking artwork on the walls. The floor was polished marble that reflected the lights above like a mirror. There were several comfortable seating areas with soft leather couches, and fresh flowers in large vases added color and fragrance to the space. Behind the main desk, several staff members in crisp white uniforms and black blazers stood ready to help guests. The check-in area was elegant but also efficient. Amara had made her reservation 3 weeks in advance. She had booked the Sunrise Suite, one of the hotel's most popular rooms. Known for its stunning view of the city skyline and comfortable furnishings, she walked toward the front desk with confidence. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor. The young woman at the desk looked up and smiled, but the smile faded quickly. Amara noticed the change in the woman's expression, but she said nothing. She simply placed her briefcase down and prepared to give her name for check-in. Before the young woman could speak, a tall man in an expensive dark suit appeared from a side door. He moved quickly toward Amara. His face was stern and serious. This was Mr. Richard Sterling, the CEO of the Grand Royal Hotel. He was known in the business world as a tough businessman who demanded perfection from his staff. He prided himself on running the hotel with strict rules and high standards. Mr. Sterling looked Amara up and down. His eyes moved from her shoes to her face. He seemed to be making quick judgments about who she was and why she was in his hotel. What he saw did not match what he expected to see in the Grand Royal Hotel's lobby. His jaw tightened and his expression became cold. "Can I help you?" he asked, but his tone was not welcoming. It was the tone of someone who was about to tell another person that they did not belong somewhere. Amara smiled politely. "Yes. I have a reservation. My name is Dr. Amara Johnson. I booked the Sunrise Suite for 3 nights. Mr. Sterling's eyes narrowed. He turned to the young woman at the desk without taking his eyes off Amara. "Check the reservation system," he commanded. His voice was sharp and cold. The young woman typed quickly on her computer. Her face flushed with embarrassment. She looked confused and uncomfortable. "Yes, sir, I see the reservation, doctor." Johnson's reservation is confirmed, but Mr. Sterling was not listening anymore. He had already made his decision. He looked at Amara with disappointment and suspicion. "I'm sorry, but we have a very strict dress code and guest policy at this hotel," he said, his words dripping with disdain. "We cannot accommodate you tonight. I'm sure there are other hotels in the city that would be more suitable for your needs." Amara's heart sank. She could not believe what she was hearing. "Excuse me?" she said, keeping her voice calm and professional. "I have a confirmed reservation. I am a paying guest." "Nevertheless," Mr. Sterling said firmly, "I don't think you will be comfortable here. Security will help you with your luggage." "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding." Before Amara could say another word, 2 security guards appeared beside her. She was being asked to leave the hotel, in front of other guests who had stopped to watch, in front of the staff who looked down at their desks in shame. Dr. Amara Johnson, a successful businesswoman, an investor, a woman of intelligence and worth, was being escorted out of the Grand Royal Hotel like she did not belong there. The cold night air hit Amara's face as the security guards walked her toward the exit. Her legs felt weak, but she refused to show any sign of tears or weakness. She had experienced discrimination before in her life, but never like this. Never so public, never so humiliating, never in a place where she had paid good money for a service. Outside the hotel on the busy street, the security guards placed her suitcase on the sidewalk beside her. One of them spoke in a low voice. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but those are the orders from Mr. Sterling." He looked genuinely uncomfortable, as if he did not agree with what he had been told to do. Amara stood there alone on the street. Watching the traffic pass by, her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from anger. Rage was building inside her like a volcano about to erupt. She had worked so hard to get where she was. She had overcome obstacles and challenges that many people would never understand. And now, on what should have been a night of celebration after closing her biggest deal, she was standing on a street with her suitcase like a homeless person. She pulled out her phone and looked at the time. It was 7:45 in the evening. She had exactly 20 minutes before she needed to make a phone call that would change everything. But first, she needed to understand what had just happened. She walked back toward the hotel entrance and peered through the glass doors. Inside, she could see Mr. Sterling talking to the young woman at the front desk. He was pointing in the direction of where Amara had been standing. His face was animated and he seemed to be giving instructions. Amara watched as he laughed, a cold and cruel laugh that echoed even through the thick glass. He seemed pleased with himself, proud of what he had done, as if he had done the hotel a service by throwing out a black woman who did not fit his image of what a luxury hotel guest should look like. Amara's mind raced. She thought about all the times she had faced discrimination in her life. The time a bank manager had refused to give her a business loan because he did not think a woman could run a successful company. The time she had been followed in an expensive store because the staff thought she could not afford to shop there. The time colleagues had given credit for her ideas to white men instead of to her. Each time she had pushed through. She had succeeded despite the obstacles, and each time she had learned a valuable lesson about how the world worked. But this time was different. This time she had the power to do something about it. She pulled up her contacts on her phone and scrolled through the names. There was Michael Chen, the owner of a major investment firm who had been trying to partner with her for years. There was Sarah Williams, a powerful businesswoman who sat on multiple corporate boards. And there was James Patterson, a lawyer and investor who had the connections to make things happen quickly. She dialed Michael Chen first. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Michael, it's Amara. I need your help with something. And I need it fast," she said, her voice steady and determined. "Amara, of course, what do you need?" Michael replied. He knew her well enough to understand that when she spoke like this, it was serious. She explained the situation quickly. Leaving out no details, she told him about the Grand Royal Hotel, about Mr. Sterling, about the discrimination. Michael listened carefully, and when she finished, he did not hesitate. "I know someone on the board of the parent company that owns that hotel," Michael said. "In fact, I think they're looking for new investments. I'll make some calls. Give me 15 minutes. Amara thanked him and ended the call. She looked back at the hotel. Mr. Sterling was no longer visible through the glass doors. She wondered if he was in his office celebrating his victory, feeling proud that he had kept his hotel clean and exclusive. Exactly 12 minutes later, Michael called her back. "You're not going to believe this," he said, excitement in his voice. "The board has been looking for a majority investor. They want someone they can trust, someone strong, someone who understands business. I pitched you and they want to meet. They're actually looking to make a move very soon. Possibly within the next few days." Amara's heart began to beat faster. "How soon can we make this happen?" she asked. "How soon can you sign the papers?" Michael replied, "I can arrange everything for tomorrow morning. We can have the deal closed by noon. You'll be a majority shareholder by lunchtime, Amara. You're about to own that hotel." Amara smiled, a slow, powerful smile. She looked back at the Grand Royal Hotel, its lights glowing brightly in the darkness. In less than 20 minutes, her humiliation had transformed into an opportunity. The man who had thrown her out did not know it yet, but his days as CEO of the Grand Royal Hotel were numbered. Amara sat in the lobby of a smaller hotel 2 blocks away from the Grand Royal. She had checked in quickly under a different name, wanting to avoid any complications. The room was comfortable enough. though nothing like what she had expected at the Grand Royal. But that did not matter anymore. She sat on the edge of the bed, her laptop open, her phone in her hand, and her mind working through every detail of what needed to happen next. The deal with Michael Chen was moving forward faster than she had anticipated. Within 30 minutes of their first conversation, she had received an email with preliminary documents. The investment group that owned the Grand Royal Hotel was desperate for fresh capital and new leadership. The current management team had been struggling. Guest complaints were rising, employee turnover was high, and profit margins were shrinking. The board was looking for someone bold enough to make real changes. But Amara wanted to know more before she signed anything. She needed to understand why exactly the board was so willing to accept her as a majority investor. She made another phone call, this time to Sarah Williams. The businesswoman she knew from industry conferences. Sarah, I need some information about the Grand Royal Hotel's parent company, Amara said without any introduction. What do you know about them? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Actually, I'm glad you called. I was planning to reach out to you. There's been some movement in that company. The current CEO, Richard Sterling. He's been making decisions that are destroying the business. He's alienating clients. He's fired several good employees without proper justification. And there have been complaints about his management style. Some board members have been looking for an excuse to push him out. Why do you ask? Amara told her the story. She described what had happened at the hotel, how she had been thrown out, how she was now considering investing in the company. Sarah listened carefully, and when Amara finished, Sarah laughed. A genuine, delighted laugh. This is perfect, Sarah said. Amara, this is absolutely perfect. You need to do this, not just for yourself, but for everyone else who has been treated poorly by that man. Richard Sterling has a reputation in this industry. Multiple women have complained about his behavior, but nothing has ever stuck because they did not have the power or the resources to challenge him. You have both. Buy that hotel, buy that company, and make the changes that need to be made. That conversation gave Amara the confidence she needed. She called Michael back and told him to proceed with the full negotiations. She authorized him to make an offer that would give her controlling interest in the parent company. She had the capital, she had the connections, and now she had the motivation over the next few hours. Amara made several more phone calls. She called her business manager to arrange the transfer of funds. She called her lawyer to review all the contracts. She called trusted colleagues in the business world to confirm what she was hearing about Mr. Sterling and his management style. Each conversation reinforced her decision. She was doing the right thing. By midnight, the deal was essentially done. All that remained were the final signatures and the official announcements. Amara sat back in her chair and allowed herself to smile. She thought about the humiliation she had experienced just hours earlier. She thought about the feeling of being escorted out of that hotel like she was a criminal. She thought about Mr. Sterling's cold face and cruel laugh. But she also thought about something else. She thought about the young woman at the front desk who had looked ashamed. She thought about the security guards who had apologized. She thought about all the employees at that hotel who were probably unhappy working under Mr. Sterling's management. She thought about future guests, people from different backgrounds who deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. Amara opened her laptop and began typing an email to the board members of the parent company. She introduced herself formally, outlined her vision for the hotel and the company. She spoke about creating a culture of inclusivity, about training staff to treat all guests with equal respect, about building a business based on values, not just profits. As she typed, she realized that this was about more than just revenge or vindication. This was about opportunity. This was about the chance to create real change in an industry that had problems. This was about showing other women, especially Black women, that discrimination does not have to be the end of your story. Sometimes, discrimination can be the beginning of something powerful. She hit send on the email. Then she lay back on the hotel bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow morning, she would sign the papers. Tomorrow afternoon, she would own the Grand Royal Hotel. And very soon after that, Mr. Richard Sterling would learn a lesson about respect, dignity, and the consequences of his actions. Amara woke up at 6 a.m. on what would become the most significant day of her professional life. The morning light filtered through the hotel room curtains, casting soft shadows across the walls. She had barely slept, her mind too active. Too full of plans and possibilities, she got out of bed and went to the window. looking out at the city as it began to wake up. She took a long shower, letting the hot water calm her nerves. She dressed carefully in a burgundy power suit with a crisp white shirt. She chose jewelry that was elegant but not flashy. A gold bracelet and small pearl earrings. She wanted to look professional, powerful, and ready for what was ahead. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw a woman who was about to change her life and the lives of many others. Her phone began buzzing with messages at 7:30 a.m. Michael Chen had sent her the final contract documents. Her lawyer had reviewed them and given his approval. The board members had confirmed the meeting time for 9 a.m. at their corporate office. Everything was moving exactly as planned. At 8:30 a.m., Amara left her hotel and took a taxi to the corporate office building. It was a tall, modern building in the business district, full of important companies and powerful people. She rode the elevator to the 42nd floor, her heart beating steadily, her mind clear and focused. The boardroom was impressive, with a long mahogany table, comfortable leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the entire city spread out below. 5 board members were already seated, along with Michael Chen and her lawyer. They stood up to greet her, shaking her hand with respect and formality. The meeting lasted only 40 minutes. The board members explained the situation with the company. They reviewed the financial documents. They outlined their concerns about current management, and they presented Amara's proposal. She answered their questions confidently. She spoke about her business experience, her track record of success, her vision for improving the hotel's operations. The board members listened carefully, occasionally nodding in agreement when everything was settled. The legal documents were placed on the table. Amara read through them one final time. Then she picked up the pen. She signed her name on multiple pages, her signature strong and clear. With each signature, her ownership stake in the company grew larger. With the final signature, it was official. She now owned controlling interest in the Grand Royal Hotel and its parent company. The board members applauded. Michael Chen smiled widely. Her lawyer shook her hand. "Congratulations, Dr. Johnson," the board chairman said. "Welcome to the team. We are very pleased to have you as our majority shareholder. We look forward to working with you." "Thank you," Amara replied, her voice calm and professional. "I am excited about the opportunities ahead. I believe we can transform this company and create something truly special. But first, I have some changes I need to make." "Of course," the chairman said. "What do you need from us?" "I need you to remove Richard Sterling from his position as CEO immediately," Amara said directly. "I want this done today. I want official letters of termination prepared. I want a press release ready for distribution, and I want security to escort him from the building if necessary." The board members exchanged glances. Some looked surprised at how quickly she was moving, but others nodded in agreement. "We can do that," the chairman said. "In fact, the board has been waiting for an opportunity to make this change. We just needed someone with the authority and the courage to do it. You clearly have both." By noon, everything was arranged. The board had voted unanimously to remove Mr. Sterling from his position. Legal documents had been prepared, and security had been notified. Amara sat in what would soon be her office, reviewing the hotel's organizational structure and employee records. She was already thinking about the changes she wanted to make. The final step was to notify Mr. Sterling himself. Amara decided she wanted to do this in person. She called his office and requested an immediate meeting. When his assistant hesitated, saying he was busy, Amara simply said, "Tell him it is very important. Tell him it is about the future of the Grand Royal Hotel." Within 15 minutes, Amara was walking through the corridors of the hotel, heading toward the executive offices on the top floor. Mr. Sterling's door was open and she could see him at his desk. Looking through some papers, he looked up as she approached, and she watched his face change from confusion to shock to something darker, something that resembled fear. "Dr. Johnson," he said, standing up quickly. "What are you doing here? I thought we settled your situation last night." Amara walked into his office and closed the door behind her. She stood in front of his desk, her posture straight, her expression serious. "No, Mr. Sterling," she said calmly. "We did not settle anything last night, but today, we are going to settle everything." Amara's words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Mr. Sterling's face turned pale. He slowly sat back down in his chair, his hands trembling slightly. "What do you mean?" he asked. but his voice no longer carried the confidence it had the night before. "I mean," Amara said, walking slowly around his office, "that I am now the majority shareholder of this company. I own the Grand Royal Hotel. I own everything you built here. And as of 30 minutes ago, you no longer have a job." Richard Sterling jumped up from his chair. "That is impossible," he said, his voice rising. "You cannot just come in here and take over my hotel. This is my company. I built this, you built it," Amara agreed, "but you destroyed it with your own hands. Your management style has driven away good employees. Your discrimination has alienated clients. Your decisions have caused profit margins to drop. The board of directors was looking for a reason to remove you. I simply gave them that reason." She placed a letter on his desk. "This is your termination notice. You have until the end of the business day to clear out your office. Security will escort you from the building. You will receive your severance package and benefits according to your contract. But your time as CEO of the Grand Royal Hotel is over, Mr." Sterling looked at the letter as if it was a snake about to bite him. His face showed a mix of emotions: anger, shock, denial, fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out for the first time. He seemed to understand the gravity of his situation. He had spent years looking down on others, dismissing people, treating them as less than human, and now it had caught up with him. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "How did you do this?" "I am Dr. Amara Johnson," she replied. "I am a businesswoman, an investor, and apparently, as of today, your boss, or rather your former boss, you threw me out of this hotel last night because of the color of my skin. You made an assumption about who I was based on my appearance. You never asked me any questions. You never gave me a chance to explain. You simply judged me and acted on that judgment. That was your mistake." She walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. "You know what the sad part is, Mr. Sterling? If you had treated me with basic human decency last night, if you had checked my reservation, if you had apologized for any confusion, none of this would have happened. But instead you chose to be cruel. You chose to be discriminatory, and now you are paying the price." Amara left his office without waiting for a response. She walked down the corridor with her head held high. Already word was spreading through the building. Employees who had been at their desks noticed her passing. They whispered to each other, wondering who she was, why she was on the executive floor, what was happening. She rode the elevator down to the main lobby of the Grand Royal Hotel. This time it felt different. The same marble floors, the same crystal chandeliers, the same expensive artwork, but the energy in the space had shifted. She walked toward the front desk where the young woman from last night was working. The young woman looked up and recognition flashed across her face. Her eyes widened and she looked confused. "Dr. Johnson," she said hesitantly. Mr. Sterling said." "I know what Mr. Sterling said," Amara replied with a kind smile. "But things have changed. I would like to speak to the entire staff. Can you arrange for everyone to gather in the main conference room in 30 minutes? The young woman nodded quickly and picked up the phone. Within 30 minutes, almost 100 employees of the Grand Royal Hotel were assembled in the conference room. There were housekeeping staff, maintenance workers, kitchen staff, servers, receptionists, managers, and supervisors. They all looked confused and uncertain. They had heard rumors, but no one knew for sure what was happening. Amara walked to the front of the room and stood where everyone could see her. "My name is Dr. Amara Johnson," she began, her voice calm and clear. "As of today, I am the majority shareholder of this hotel, which means I am now in charge. I know that many of you are worried. Many of you are probably wondering what this means for your jobs. Let me be clear. Anyone who wants to keep their job and who is willing to work with me to create a better environment in this hotel will have a job." She paused and looked around the room. "Last night I was treated unfairly in this hotel. I was discriminated against and asked to leave. That should never happen to any guest. That should never happen to any person. Effective immediately, this hotel is under new management. We are going to change our policies. We are going to change our culture. We are going to make sure that every single guest is treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their race, their gender, their religion, or anything else." A murmur went through the crowd. Some employees looked relieved, others looked hopeful. The young woman from the front desk had tears in her eyes. "I believe in second chances," Amara continued. "I believe in treating people fairly. I believe in building something good. I believe in all of you together. We are going to build a hotel that we can all be proud of. 3 days had passed since Amara took control of the Grand Royal Hotel. The news had spread quickly through the business community. Local news stations had picked up the story, and social media was buzzing with headlines. Woman thrown out of 5-star hotel becomes owner in 24 hours, the stories read. Some praised her courage. Others criticized the speed of her decisions. But everyone was watching. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. On Thursday morning, Amara sat in the boardroom on the 42nd floor, surrounded by the same board members who had voted to give her controlling interest in the company. But today, the meeting had a different purpose. Today, she was here to present her vision for the future. Today, she would formally address the question of Richard Sterling's permanent removal and the appointment of a new management structure. The board chairman, Mr. Robert Davies, called the meeting to order. Dr. Johnson, we have all read your preliminary reports about changes you want to implement. We are impressed with your strategic thinking. However, we do want to discuss the situation with Mr. Sterling more thoroughly. Some members of the board have concerns about the speed of his removal and the potential legal implications. Amara nodded. She had expected this. I understand the concerns, she said calmly. Let me address them directly, first, Mr. Sterling was terminated for cause. His discriminatory practices, his poor management decisions, his treatment of employees and guests, all of these constitute violations of company policy and legal standards regarding workplace conduct. The documentation is extensive. We have complaints from multiple employees. We have evidence of his discriminatory behavior. We have financial reports showing the decline in the hotel's performance under his leadership. She pulled up a presentation on the large screen in the boardroom. Charts and graphs appeared, showing employee turnover rates, guest satisfaction scores, and financial performance metrics. All of them showed a clear decline during Mr. Sterling's tenure as CEO. Second, Amara continued, I want to address the elephant in the room, Mr. Sterling threw me out of this hotel because I am a black woman. He made assumptions about who I was based on my appearance. He did not check my reservation. He did not ask questions. He simply acted on his prejudices. This is discrimination. Pure and simple. It is illegal. It is unethical. And it is exactly the kind of behavior that has been damaging this company's reputation. One of the board members, a woman named Patricia Torres, raised her hand. Dr. Johnson, I appreciate what you are saying, but how do we know this will not create legal problems for us? What if Mr. Sterling decides to sue? That is a fair question, Amara replied. And I have already consulted with our legal team. Mr. Sterling signed a comprehensive employment contract that includes clauses about discriminatory conduct. He also signed agreements acknowledging our company policies regarding guest treatment and workplace conduct. If he attempts to sue, we have overwhelming evidence to support our actions. In fact, our legal advisors believe that we are in an extremely strong position. She paused and looked around the table. But more importantly, I want to discuss what comes next. I am not just here to remove a bad CEO. I am here to build something better. I have prepared a comprehensive plan for transforming the Grand Royal Hotel into an industry leader, not just in luxury and comfort, but in inclusivity, respect, and ethical business practices. Amara presented her plan over the next hour. She outlined new hiring practices designed to create a diverse workforce. She described mandatory training programs for all staff members focused on cultural sensitivity and respectful treatment of all guests. She presented strategies for marketing the hotel to a broader range of clientele. She showed financial projections demonstrating how these changes would actually increase profitability. People want to feel welcome, she explained. People want to know that when they spend their money at a business, they will be treated with dignity. The Grand Royal Hotel has been operating under the assumption that exclusivity means excluding certain types of people. But real luxury is about exceptional service for everyone, not about making some people feel unwelcome. The board members listened intently. Some took notes, others asked questions. By the end of her presentation, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The initial skepticism had transformed into enthusiasm. I move that we accept Dr. Johnson's comprehensive plan for the hotel's transformation, Patricia Torres said. I also move that we formally approve Richard Sterling's termination and authorize Dr. Johnson to appoint a new chief operating officer. Seconded, said another board member. The vote was unanimous, all board members agreed. The path forward was clear. Amara would have full authority to implement her vision. As the meeting concluded and people began gathering their papers, Mr. Davies approached Amara. "Dr. Johnson, I want to personally say that I think what you are doing is remarkable. Not just for this company, but for the industry. You could have simply taken revenge. You could have made this about personal satisfaction, but instead, you are using this opportunity to create real change. That takes integrity." "Thank you," Amara said. "But I am not doing this just for me. I am doing this for every person who has ever been treated poorly because of who they are. I am doing this because business should be better than this. Companies should be better than this. And I intend to prove that a hotel can be both profitable and principled, both successful and ethical." 6 months had passed since Amara took control of the Grand Royal Hotel. The transformation had been remarkable, not just in the physical appearance of the building, but in the culture and spirit that now filled its halls. The lobby still had the same marble floors and crystal chandeliers, but now it felt warmer, more welcoming, more alive. The first major change Amara implemented was the comprehensive training program for all staff members. Every single employee, from the housekeeping department to the executive offices, went through a mandatory workshop on cultural sensitivity, unconscious bias, and respectful guest treatment. The training was not just a checkbox exercise, it was meaningful, interactive, and backed up by real consequences for those who did not take it seriously. Amara also completely revised the hotel's hiring practices. The Human Resources Department now actively recruited employees from diverse backgrounds. They attended job fairs at historically black colleges and universities. They partnered with immigrant communities. They actively sought to build a staff that reflected the diversity of the city and the world. The result was a team that brought different perspectives, different languages, and different experiences to their work. The young woman who had been at the front desk on the night Amara was thrown out, her name was Angela, had been promoted to assistant manager. She had shown genuine compassion that night, and Amara had recognized her potential. Angela had eagerly embraced the new direction of the hotel and had become one of Amara's most trusted team members. Changes to the physical hotel were also significant. The marketing materials were completely redesigned to feature guests and staff of all backgrounds. The photography that had previously shown only wealthy white guests now displayed a true spectrum of humanity. The website was updated to explicitly state the hotel's commitment to treating all guests with equal respect, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or any other characteristic. Amara hired a new chief operating officer, David Chen, a respected hospitality veteran who shared her vision for creating an inclusive luxury experience. Together, they restructured several departments, eliminated unnecessary bureaucratic layers, and created new positions focused specifically on guest relations and cultural integration. They also raised staff salaries and improved benefits, recognizing that treating employees well was essential to creating a culture of excellence. The results were undeniable within 3 months. Guest satisfaction scores had increased by 30%. Employee retention rates had improved dramatically. Staff members who had been looking for other jobs began asking to stay. They wanted to be part of something meaningful. They wanted to work for a company that aligned with their values. Business was booming. Guests from all over the world were reading about the hotel's transformation and wanted to experience it for themselves. Travel bloggers and journalists were writing glowing reviews. Major conventions and events were booking the hotel because of its inclusive reputation. The financial projections that Amara had presented to the board were being exceeded. The hotel was not just surviving, it was thriving. One afternoon, Amara stood on the rooftop of the hotel, looking out at the city skyline. She thought about where she had been 6 months ago. Standing on the street with her suitcase, feeling humiliated and angry, she thought about the rage that had filled her that night. But she also thought about how she had channeled that rage into something constructive. David Chen joined her on the rooftop. "The evening shift just reported record bookings for next month," he said with a smile. "We are at capacity almost every day, Dr. Johnson. What you have accomplished here is truly extraordinary." "It is not just me," Amara replied. "It is the entire team. It is every single person who believed that this hotel could be better. It is everyone who was willing to challenge the old way of doing things and embrace something new." She paused and smiled. "But I will admit, there is some personal satisfaction in knowing that we have proven something important. We have shown that you do not have to compromise your values to be successful. You do not have to treat people poorly to make a profit. In fact, the opposite is true. When you treat people with dignity and respect, when you create an inclusive environment, business improves, the numbers prove it. That evening, Amara held a special dinner for all employees and their families. It was held in the hotel's grand ballroom and more than 500 people attended. Amara gave a speech thanking everyone for their hard work and dedication. She spoke about the hotel's mission moving forward. She announced that the company would be donating 10% of its annual profits to local charities focused on education and community development. As she looked out at the faces in the room, faces of different colors, different ages, different backgrounds, all smiling, all engaged, all feeling valued, she knew that this was about more than just business success. This was about creating a different kind of workplace, a different kind of company, a different kind of world. Later that night, as Amara walked through the quiet halls of the hotel, she noticed a framed photograph hanging in the lobby. It was a photo from the first week after she had taken over, showing her shaking hands with the entire staff in front of the hotel entrance. Below the photograph was a plaque that read, "The Grand Royal Hotel, where every guest is treated royally." She smiled, thinking about how true those words had become. The transformation was not yet complete. There was still much work to be done, but the foundation had been built. The culture had changed. The future was bright. 1 year had passed since the night Amara Johnson was thrown out of the Grand Royal Hotel. She sat in her office on the top floor, the same office that had once belonged to Richard Sterling. But it looked completely different now. Gone were the cold, sterile decorations and the imposing mahogany furniture. Instead, the space was warm and inviting, filled with plants, artwork from local artists, and photographs of the hotel's staff and guests. The walls displayed awards and recognitions that the Grand Royal Hotel had received over the past year. Best Inclusive Hotel in the Region, Excellence in Diversity and Workplace Culture, Guest Satisfaction Award, Most Improved Hospitality Business. The accolades kept coming. But Amara did not hang them on her walls for vanity. She hung them to remind herself and everyone who visited her office about what was possible when you committed to doing the right thing. The hotel's financial performance had exceeded all expectations. Revenue had increased by 45% compared to the previous year. Occupancy rates were consistently above 90%, and the hotel had expanded to open a sister property in a neighboring city, using the same principles of inclusive hospitality that had made the Grand Royal Hotel successful. Investors were lining up to fund further expansion. But Amara was being selective. She wanted to grow, but not at the expense of quality or values. The staff had grown as well. The hotel now employed more than 600 people, and the employee turnover rate was the lowest in the industry. People wanted to work at the Grand Royal Hotel. They wanted to be part of something that mattered. They wanted to work for a leader who respected them and valued their contributions. Amara had created a benefits package that included health care, retirement plans, education assistance, and paid parental leave for all employees. Angela, the young woman from the front desk, had continued to rise through the ranks. She was now the director of guest relations, responsible for ensuring that every single guest felt welcome and valued. She had become one of Amara's closest advisors and friends. She often told the story of that first night, about how nervous she had been when Amara was escorted out, and how she had known even then that something was wrong about what had happened. The broader impact of Amara's transformation of the Grand Royal Hotel had been significant. Other hotels in the city had started to examine their own practices. Some had implemented similar training programs and hiring practices. The hospitality industry was slowly beginning to change, to recognize that inclusion was not just a moral imperative, but a business advantage. Amara had been invited to speak at industry conferences, to share her story and her strategies with other business leaders, but the impact went beyond the hospitality industry. Amara's story had captured the imagination of people everywhere. News outlets had done feature stories about her. Business magazines had profiled her as a young entrepreneur to watch. She had been asked to serve on the boards of several nonprofit organizations focused on education and community development. She had used her platform and her resources to advocate for greater diversity and inclusion in corporate America. One evening, Amara received an unexpected visitor. It was Richard Sterling, her predecessor as CEO. He looked different from when she had last seen him. He was thinner, his hair was grayer, and his expression was softer. He asked if they could talk, and Amara, curious and cautious, agreed to meet with him in her office. "I owe you an apology," he said without any preamble. "I have spent the past year thinking about what I did, about why I did it. I have had a lot of time to reflect on my life and my choices, and I am deeply ashamed. I treated you poorly that night, but more importantly, I treated many people poorly throughout my career. I did not see them as human beings. I only saw them as roles to fill or obstacles to remove." Amara listened quietly as he continued. "Your success, the transformation of this hotel, it has made me realize something important. I could have been part of something good. I could have led this company in a different direction. Instead, I chose to cling to old ways of thinking. I chose to judge people based on their appearance. I chose to be cruel, and that choice cost me everything." He paused, looking out the window at the city below. "I am not here to ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve that. I am here to tell you that you have changed my life. Not because you removed me from my position, but because your example has shown me what real leadership looks like. I have started working with a therapist to address my prejudices and biases. I have been volunteering with a nonprofit that helps people from marginalized communities find employment. I am trying to become a better person." After he left, Amara sat alone in her office for a long time. Thinking about his words, forgiveness was complicated, but she recognized that his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and work to change was important, not just for him but for everyone. Later that week, Amara was invited to a major business conference to deliver the keynote speech. Standing on stage in front of thousands of business leaders, she told her story. She spoke about the night she was thrown out of the hotel, about her anger and her determination, about the opportunity that had emerged from discrimination, about the transformation that was possible when people committed to change. "Your business is a reflection of your values," she told the audience. "If your company discriminates, it is because you allow it. If your company is exclusive, it is because you choose it. But you also have the power to choose differently. You have the power to build something better, something more inclusive, something more humane. The question is not whether you can do it. The question is whether you will." As she looked out at the sea of faces, she saw people nodding, people taking notes, people thinking. She knew that not all of them would take her words to heart. But some would. Some would go back to their companies and make changes. Some would recognize that diversity and inclusion were not just moral imperatives, but business imperatives. Some would understand that treating people with dignity and respect made their companies stronger and more successful. Amara Johnson had come to the Grand Royal Hotel as a guest seeking a restful night. Instead, she had been treated with disrespect and discrimination. But from that painful experience, she had created something beautiful, something meaningful, something that would continue to inspire and change people for years to come. Her story was a testament to the power of resilience, to the strength of conviction, and to the possibility of transformation. The Grand Royal Hotel would forever be known not just as a place of luxury and comfort, but as a symbol of what was possible when people chose to do the right thing,